The fall of the 2019-2020 L.A Clippers. What went wrong? How do you claim to have the best defensive pieces in the league and blow 3 straight leads to close out a team that, let's keep it a stack, in hindsight, you weren't supposed to beat anyway because they have a better coach than you do, their players have more heart than yours does by a mile, and their 2 best players, for whatever reason, played and looked better than yours. You were still up 3-1 on them. To put this out there right now, the Clippers were my team in this year's playoffs. You know how strongly I feel about Lebron and the narrative the NBA wants to create that he's somehow the best player ever, as if all but one of his rings aren't questionable. And what better year than this one to have him win and push this in the name of Kobe narrative. Whether we agree or not, I'll always stand on the perspective I have when viewing LeBron and the way he's went about winning over the years. I say that to explain why I picked the Clippers to win it all this year. To me, they're the best team in the league to beat the Lakers and LeBron, and I wanted that so bad. That same underdog, hungry attitude the Nuggets used to beat them is the same energy the Clippers felt towards the Lakers, and unfortunately, no other team in the league. They didn't view any other team as being on their level, and it cost them. I was on Twitter expressing my frustrations, and I wasn't going to speak on this loss because I'm so disappointed in how it all played out. But being on there fueled me to speak on it, so here's 3 reasons the 2019-20 Clippers turned out to be trash. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Stunt number 1, Doc Rivers.
And he was lucky as hell. Lucky as hell. The year before that, they was wearing trash bags. But then, the next year they win it. Now he's one of the bestest coach ever? I'm just not feeling that.
Is he overrated as a coach?
I think so.
Doc Rivers, and I mean no disrespect to him, because it's not like he's rating himself. But he has to be the most overrated coach in the history of basketball, or at least since I've been watching, especially in the playoffs. Want to know his record postseason? 91 wins, 89 losses. Want to know Greg Pops? 170 wins, 114 losses. 4th in league history. So when I hear people even think to compare them, I can't help but bitter bareface. Want to know the only coach ever in the history of the NBA to blow a 3-1 lead 3 times over the course of their career? You guessed it, Doc Rivers. Orlando, 3-1 up on the Detroit Pistons in 2003, smoked that off. Clippers, Western Conference Semifinals 2015 up 3-1 on the Rockets, smoked that one clean off. 2020 up 3-1 on the Nuggets, who just went Game 7 with the Jazz and had to play you guys 2 days later, who have 2 stars and one never made an All-Star. A guy named Monte Morris, another guy named Gary Harris, and Jeremy Grant, who deserves so much credit for locking both Paul George and Kawhi up in this series. They had these guys. And what did this Doc Rivers-led Clippers team do again? Smoke a 3-1 lead. Puff, puff, pass. So when I see Jamal Murray sink a botched, slight hezzy, Dame range pull up with 8:48 to go in the game to put his team up 15, right in Patrick Beverley's face, and Doc's on the sideline, clearly realizing he just blew another one. I knew this team, with him at the helm, isn't gonna ever work. He has no offense, no quick, easy scores like Denver ran countless times out of timeouts to get easy buckets, and you just knew the Clippers weren't going to do anything to stop them. Because why? Doc Rivers isn't at that level mentally as these other coaches. Mike Malone, Nick Nurse, Eric Spoelstra, Brad Stevens, Greg Pop, no, he's not on that level. I haven't seen one offensive play ran this year that I said to myself, wow, that play can work at any time. His plays work when Kawhi makes shots. His plays works when PG doesn't have Dame sitting on his shoulders, reminding him he sucks. His plays work when Lou Williams and Trez got it going and play with confidence. They did not in this series. In and out the bubble for whatever reason, was never ready to participate anyway and never adjusted. And I know they're gonna say, well, JC, how can you criticize him when he's an NBA coach and you're JC Stunted Growth? And you're right. Doc has been around the game longer than I was born probably, but that don't mean he's good. There's a lot of coaches that coach and aren't good in the league. Most Game 7 losses as a head coach, yup, Doc Rivers. 8. The next coach, 5. Lost 6 playoff series where his team led 3-2 going into the final 2 games of the series, Doc Rivers. Not saying he doesn't speak well or has this weird sense of humor filled with obvious punchlines that people gravitate to. Not saying he doesn't carry himself like a champion. All I'm saying is that he's not the man for this job. The Clippers need a schemer to get Paul open, a schemer to get Kawhi in different looks instead of going one-on-one all day, a schemer not to blow a 3-1 lead. I can't with Rivers, and I'll stand on feeling he's overrated.
Lucky as hell. The year before that, they was wearing trash bags.
Stunt number 2, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Look, I hate it has to be these two, because I genuinely like Paul George as a player. I really do. But he has to be the clearest illustration of streaky we've ever seen. I mean, if you draw a picture to explain to a non-basketball watcher what streaky means, you draw a picture of Paul George. When he's cooking, he's really cooking. When he's not, he hits the side of the backboard. In Game 7, with his team down 15, goes 4 for 16, 2 for 11, and scored 10 points. You know when I knew it was over for Paul George? When I saw how he dealt with that Dame Lillard situation. Not wanting to relive it, I'll just say this. The outcome of that situation for him shook his mental, and from then on, he felt 1, he had something to prove, and 2, that now all the eyes were on him. Like, really, now that you spoke on Dame how you did. Then there's the comments about him wifing a stripper, abortion money, his family, personal stuff that streaky players just can't deal with. On top of that, you were playing horrible in the Dallas series and people started to question your actual game. That back and forth with Dame took PG out of his rhythm, out of his normal too cool self, and put him in his streaky zone that he couldn't find himself out. And honestly, I'm not sure he'll ever get out of it. It's too deep. Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi has to take equally the amount of blame because since Game 6, I saw a different player, and it's not even his stats. I saw a guy that didn't have another level to go to like I thought, or maybe only comes out against LeBron. A guy that couldn't get to spots as easily, couldn't make shots he usually took and made. And finally in Game 7, a guy that got locked up by Jeremy Grant and was gassed. Horrible decision making, turnovers, out of control waving for a pass that distracted Paul George. It's like the league came to him and said, hey look bruh, we trying to get LeBron in the finals and win another weak chip to build this We Did It for Kobe campaign. So here, take these free bot upgrades, you can use them next season, and go out there and play bad. Don't care how you do it, just suck and be trash. Alright, bring it in. They had to have told him that, bro. Then there's my biggest issue with Kawhi. I'm sorry, bro, but you picked a sport where it includes talking, my man. You go games on games saying 0 words to anyone at all. Like, not even a N1! That makes you, in my opinion, not that good of a leader. Sure, you can lead by your play, but what happens when you aren't playing well? Are the other players supposed to follow you and suck too? You have to pick up your energy, man. When the Nuggets made runs, you'd see Jokic, Murray, all those guys go crazy. That fuels your team with energy. Pat Bev needs energy to be effective. Trez needs it. PG needs it. As a leader, you may be the worst fitted for this year's team, and it's all because you bring no energy. Last year in Toronto, you weren't with guys that needed that from you. They all had chips on their shoulders since before you. You just came and brought the playing to it and got a bit lucky having KD go down, not to mention Clay. You have to be a better emotional leader, a guy that talks and motivates his teammates. That in my shell thing you do ain't gonna work often on this team. Maybe elsewhere, but probably not here. Stunt number 3, the others. Led by Lou Lemon Pepper Williams. I said before the bubble even really started that Lou Will wasn't ready. because I knew in order for them to win, he had to be ready to go. We had a back and forth in the comments where he laughed it off as if they had a switch they could just turn on. Lou never wanted to be there, period. The layoff, everything happening in the black community, the restart that happened, all put him out of his comfort zone. All of it took away his rhythm and made him look trash for the first time. Then there's the Magic City situation that further took him out of it and made him not want to be there even more. It all made him average just 12 points and shot 23% from 3, blowing layups, taking ill-advised shots, and couldn't guard a shoelace. Lou Will was food on defense, just as much or more than Shamet was. Trez tried, but him going through the loss he went through personally that made him be late to the bubble with no real preparation made him ineffective. Pat Bev, he tried too, man. He really tries. But there's no energy to this team, and Pat was out of his comfort zone. The Clippers' others couldn't defend, couldn't score in big moments, and brought zero energy. You signed Joakim Noah and never used him. Reggie Jackson looked like he wanted to go home. And Zoo played okay, but couldn't guard the pick and roll, so Doc benched him in Game 7 down the stretch. The others have to give you more, and they couldn't. Going forward, I think the first thing the Clippers need to do is find a coach that has an actual offense the players can believe in and are fitted for. That give it to Kawhi or Paul George, and if that don't work, use Lou or Trez. Thing they do is garbage, and it will never win. Next, they have to sign a big to play next to Zoo. One that can rebound, shoot threes preferably, or mid, and guard the pick and roll and the basket. A Bam Adebayo mold. No, he won't be as good as Bam, but in that mold to defend guys like Jokic or switch on Murray. Then you have to have a sit down with Kawhi about his leadership and what's expected of him. On this team with these guys, he has to understand his role is to lead. Leaders talk to their teammates and knows how to get to them. It's one thing I'll give LeBron credit for. No matter how corny it is, his guys always seem to follow his lead. They look locked in this year. What Kawhi does isn't even considered an attempt. Also, possibly find a better point guard who's smart and can run an offense if you get one. A Monte Morris type, because Reggie Jackson is far from it. If they do these things, I think they'll be champions. If not, they'll forever have to live with being the basement team out in LA that once blew a 3-1 lead to this guy. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.